Narcissism is a huge problem and really truly a source of abuse in society today. Narcissists seem to prey on highly sensitive and empathic people. And I would also say that the narcissist preys on deeply compassionate, healthy, and successful people. And in fact, there are many ways that possibly anyone could be vulnerable to narcissistic abuse. In this episode, my very special guest and I discuss different ways that anyone possibly could be vulnerable to narcissistic abuse. We and the way that you can actually discern your own vulnerabilities and how to stay free of these abusive relationships through the wisdom of your human design. So stay tuned for this conscious conversation with my amazing guest, author, podcaster, and spiritual mentor, Raven Scott, and be sure to have your human design chart handy. Hello, and welcome to the Charmed Life podcast. This podcast is all about magic, metaphysics, mysticism, and the unconditional love of the universe. And I am your host. My name is Tricia Carr. Welcome, welcome. This is Tricia, and I am a 5-1 reflector, and a huge part of my journey of recovering from, all kinds of conditioning. But yes, I have had repeated relationships of narcissistic abuse, knock wood. Don't have any other ones that are going to really stick around. And I am very excited to dive into this topic because this very topic of how to discern your potential vulnerabilities to narcissistic abuse by your human design has been something I have been contemplating and meditating for the last year in deep detail. So welcome to the show. My very special guest, the author of incredible books, which we're going to talk about, and a really valuable and prolific podcast, Raven Scott. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I want to talk up front about your incredible book because those who are here, and welcome, welcome. By the way, we are live streaming this, so you may be listening to it on the podcast. We also live stream the podcast. So Raven and I are here live and direct. So those of you who are here live, I would love for you to drop a comment, tell us where you're watching from. And if you have any questions or comments that you would like to make, we would love to hear what you have to say about this topic and what possibly would have happened to you. Any questions that you have? Is that cool with you, Raven? Like we look at what people are. Yeah, good.
I'm a generator. I'd love to respond. So please comment.
Absolutely. That's right. Let's create some response for Raven. So can we please, before we dive into this topic that I'm, again, so excited to hear the ways that you'll help us to understand our vulnerabilities through our human design to this narcissistic issue that we have in society. And you have a wonderful book you have two, and your newest one is The Empath's Guide to Rising Strong. Would you like to share some information about that for us?
Yes, it's my newest book, baby. It really takes my favorite exercises from the first book, and I've created like an in-depth workbook, and there's 4 parts to it. I've added the story of goddess Inanna, the ancient Mesopotamian goddess, to help us walk through the underworld and back out, just like how it feels being with a narcissist, and helping us with our shadow work to cleanse out all of that. And then part 2 is all about moon rituals. It's a big part of my work, is releasing all of the pain that you can't get closure with from the narcissist through the moon rituals. I'm burning and transmuting. So for every zodiac and wherever the moon is in each zodiac, I have a ritual for you in there. And then I have guided meditations in the second one to help you heal even further. And then a huge section is all about human design, because people would ask me when they got their free chart, like, how do I learn more? How do I dive deeper on my own? And I kept going, well, you could buy this book, you could buy that book. And I'm like, why don't I just put it all together in my own book? Totally. So that's what I did from my own viewpoint of what human design is, and what does it mean to be a projector? What does it mean to have split definitions or your inner authority? All these things are really confusing. It's like alien language. So I tried to ground it and make it simple.
Yes, and so for the audience, in case, I mean, a lot of people who are watching or listening, they've been hearing me talk about it for a while, so they probably have some foundation. But just in case we have people who are stumbling across it for the first time, we'll do that little boilerplate. Human design is a synthesis of four ancient spiritual technologies, or you might say observational sciences, and one modern science. So the modern science is quantum physics, and then we have astrology, the chakra system, the I Ching, and the Kabbalah tree of life specifically. And what it does is by your natal birth time and place and everything will pull through a chart. It's really, isn't it like your user manual for your body and your personality? It is like it comes from two specific imprints of your development. That's approximately 3 months before you're born, and then that moment
Mhm.
of birth. And
88
it's
days. Mhm.
yeah, 88 degrees of the sun, exactly.
Yeah.
And it creates this, which when you first look at it, you're like, "I have no idea what to do with that," because it creates a chart,
It
and you're like,
it looks like
"Alright."
alien language.
And when I first, because 'cause I'm a reflector, when I first learned, someone was in my studio, she had just taken a class that I was, like, giving in person, so it was before the pandemic, clearly,
Hmm.
and she got my chart, and she goes, "You're a reflector," and I was like, "Okay." I don't know what that means, and
I'm
she
so excited to be here with you. You're so rare.
oh, that's nice. That's a nice, perspective, but for a lot of reflectors who first hear it, that sounds like you're weird, you're odd, and nobody gets you, and that's
Right.
why. Yes, all of your fears are real because of our conditioning that we're
Mhm.
listening to, how we hear the rarity, But
Yeah.
all of your centers are open. That means she'd already been talking to my other friend who was here about her, chart. And
Yeah.
she's so that means you have no definition and you have no consistent way of being or whatever thing she was saying. I was like, so I'm not a person?
Exactly. It's so confusing the way it's worded. It's like, so I don't have this energy, so I don't
I
have this,
don't
like,
have, yeah. Well,
yeah, but it's
so
not that.
it really does for any, and by the way, do you like Karen Curry Parker? She really brings some great wisdom,
Yes.
I think.
She's
And
one of my
she
biggest
says,
mentors.
"Oh, really? Oh, good. Is
Mhm.
that where you got a lot of your training from Karen or?"
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm. Yeah.
awesome. Well, I love to attribute when I'm gonna quote someone. She says, "You are a once in a lifetime cosmic event." And so
Mm.
everyone is rare and special and unique. And the human design body graph helps us to understand that. So anyway, just a little bit about the basis of human design. You can get your free chart anyway. Just Google free human design chart. Jovian Archive is, the main resource for it, and there's many others.
Yeah.
So having laid that foundation, where shall we start, Raven? What are some things that you can share with us about this empath and narcissistic trauma bond? And what do you I guess, do you wanna start with, like, what is an empath and who is an empath, and what are the capacities of being an empath, since that's a huge part of your work?
Yeah, that is a big part of my work. I think the empath, what I find is in those open centers, and it can be a
Mhm,
combination of those, but it tends
mhm.
to be people typically with a pattern of having that open solar plexus where you're
Yeah.
absorbing that emotion, an open will center where you're absorbing the agenda,
Mhm.
and the open root center where you're like having to do all the things to prove your self-worth.
Yeah.
Your nervous system is off kilter, but in essence it is a person who just takes on the weight of the world, like soaks in all that information, is highly sensitive. And I think it's important to be trained to know that you are, in order
Mhm,
to grow in your strength for your boundaries,
mhm.
because that's where we get into trouble with these narcissists who prey on us. And you can be highly successful. You don't have to be like always sobbing at the time. You can be highly sensitive and successful.
Yeah.
And these certain people, they see your light. They see that you have deep compassion for them. So essentially, if you don't have those boundaries, then you'll let them get away with
Mhm,
whatever they want, because you continue to have this deep sense of like, oh, well, I can see their inner child. I know how they're feeling. I see their trauma, right? And so then we write all these excuses, and they're like, cool, my work is done. I don't have to write any excuses and manipulate and gaslight you at the beginning, you
mhm,
know, because you see me. And they
mhm.
need that as well. They are seeking a healer.
They are,
And
and
I
they
do
are they
see,
are broken, that's true. I mean, the
yeah,
narcissistic
narcissists are broken.
The narcissist, the hurt people phrase, and the
Yeah.
narcissism is something, a strategy or a set of strategies that is used in response to, the trauma that they experienced. It's like, I think
Yeah.
100% of the time. And of course, we all have some set or form of trauma, no matter how perfect, someone's family life may have been.
Yeah.
Just trauma is simply when someone or when an entity, and particularly, it's pretty easy for a child to receive a sensory input that is too much to process in that moment, and therefore it gets crystallized in the nervous system and in the body and in the psyche, and that's trauma. Narcissists have that as well, and this is how. And by the way, narcissism is a spectrum. There are many different brands. We aren't therapists who can really diagnose people. We're talking about our personal experiences and identifying these certain kinds of skills that were used to us, right? In
Yeah.
certain relationships. I feel like that's something
And
to
we can
mention
call them
too.
toxic people, we can
Sure.
call them broken people, but essentially the ultimate thing is that they have this hurt, they're seeking that light. You are the light, you have the compassion, yet they're not introspecting or taking responsibility as they should, that we are always constantly. Typically, the empath is constantly introspecting, reevaluating. Did I do this wrong? What's happening? Like, what's in the situation? And that's our superpower. But at the same time, with people who don't take responsibility, it can be used as a weapon against us.
Weapons, I'm saying skills and strategies to try to soften it, but weapon is an
Yeah.
appropriate word for it.
I mean, with true
Yeah.
NPD, it truly
Yeah,
is. They
right,
are
exactly.
very cunning. Yes.
She's referring to narcissistic personality disorder. This is a
Correct.
proper disorder that is in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And then there is, again, a spectrum of someone being narcissistic and using narcissistic tools and cycles. And maybe they don't fall into the diagnosable place of it. But I got to say, too, that I graduated from mind body psychology degree, and it's the program. It's the second year at HMI College of Hypnotherapy, and the program is all taught by both working therapists as well, and they're also professors. They're also instructors. There wasn't a lot of narcissism. There was a little bit, but it's because they don't have a lot of experience treating narcissists. They rarely wind
Yeah.
up in therapy
Yeah.
because
It's
it's
very
hard
rare
to
for
hit
them to
rock
end up in
bottom.
therapy.
Yeah. It's hard to hit rock bottom the way that society is right now. It kind of has that big narcissistic, the conditioning that we have, of the not self-conditioning we would say in human design as a collective. It really leans to narcissism. So,
Mhm.
I would love to hear what some of the
Yeah.
things are that you found in the human design model of the vulnerabilities. You mentioned opened or undefined centers. What are some other things?
Yes. Yeah, what I'm finding is, of course, the open centers are the easiest, and for me,
Mhm.
the most conditioned area that the narcissists get to you. So again, if you're always walking on eggshells, feeling like you're responsible for their emotions, that is an unconscious way of living through your open solar plexus.
Yeah. Mhm.
And you have to become aware of that and go, okay, this is not my circus, not my monkey. Like this is not something that I started. You brought this energy in, you're mad at me, and you're projecting onto me, and now I'm starting to absorb it like it really is mine, and that I really, this is my emotion, and also that I'm at fault.
Mm.
So there's a combination, right? That at fault, like, oh, it's my fault, that starts to be the open will center. I'm actually
Yeah.
buying into that sales pitch and
Mhm.
that BS. Like, ooh, I'm I'm starting to believe that it was my fault when I was just sitting here minding my own business, doing whatever I was doing, and they've walked in and they've, threatened me or assaulted me or proclaimed that I did something to them that I didn't.
And then
And
there's the covert narcissist who will um, invoke a guilt by being very weak and very broken and very hurt. To one of the part of that strategy might be like, oh, I'm so broken and hurt, and you've hurt me because you set a boundary with me. That's not what they would
yes.
say. You set a boundary with me and it's hurt me. And then you go, okay, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. And they go, well, thank you. Thank you for being sorry. Wait, no, no, no. I said I'm sorry as a high road thing. I was trying to
Yeah.
take the high road so
Oh
we
my
could
god,
come
I
to a
literally
place.
just had a conversation like this. I was like, "So my responsibility in this vicious cycle is this. What's
Hmm.
yours?" And it was a like, and then they diverted the conversation to something totally like they didn't answer it, but they got
Yeah.
out of the answer with their, word charm and talking about this and how they
Trans
felt.
logic. Yeah.
Like,
Trans
and
logic.
those I
Mhm.
feel statements and stuff don't work with the covert narcissists. They just
No.
don't take responsibility. I'm like, oh, that's great. You feel that, but I feel this. And it's not like I feel let's move forward. It's I feel this, I'm the victim. And they go on and on about how they're the victim.
And covert narcissism, just to put a finer point on it for some people, it's also called the vulnerable narcissist. So
Mm.
it really puts up a smokescreen about how could this person possibly be narcissistic? They're so vulnerable. They're so hurt.
And
Because
or they're
that,
perfect out in the world.
yeah, that's right.
The
And
perfect citizen.
you know what? I was listening to some of your podcasts and videos, and I guess it didn't really dawn on me because it's my one of the main things that has been used by 3 very clear narcissistic relationships, that polarity, that they compel or manipulate the sensitive or the empath, the person who is the polar there, to do all of the work. And so that because they opt out and I don't really love the
Yeah.
word lazy, but that's the best
I
way to.
mean,
Yeah.
or they're entitled, right? Mine, when I was in the relationship, was entitled. Everything was given to him. Even his job was not even through an actual stranger as an employee. It was family. Like everything was
Yeah.
given. Money was just washed through. And I was like, really? I was the only one who had a real job.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was always like the expectation is set. And it's almost like we subconsciously as empaths also take on, I'm a 6'2", so I'm already, the role model's already taking on the weight of the world. And I'm like, well, I'm also going to take on the responsibility of everything else. So I cooked, I cleaned, I did the laundry, made sure the house was tidy, and I worked a full-time job, and I exercised, and I made sure I didn't gain too much weight. And
Mhm.
there's all these things that were expected out of these different conversations, like even I would make sure to go get my nails done. Like he would say, real woman or classy woman. I forget what
Ew.
adjective he used, but it was
I'm
a
already
word.
disgusted. I don't care
Yeah,
which one it
right.
is. I'm already disgusted.
Either
How dare
way,
you?
that real woman, right? And he would use his mom as example, and I would always look up to her. Like always have their nails manicured, never
Ew.
chipped. It's
Yeah.
highly offensive, and you're a horrible human being if your nails are chipped. And I'm like, okay, I'll make sure my nails aren't chipped. Like it was just this weird, like, I don't want to be disgusting and a horrible human being to you, so I'll make sure my nails are always looking good.
And then I
Just like
imagine
the strangest thing.
and then you can make it your own because you're like, "You know what? I actually do like having my nails done, so it's nice." Like, you start
Right.
to
You
own it,
start to justify it. Yeah. And start to,
justifying it.
you twist your own brain around. You start to gaslight your own self. You're like, oh, yeah,
Yes.
this totally is what I want to do on my day off is sit here and get my nails done, which I could be doing other things.
Oh my gosh. So the way that happened to me where I was doing all of the work and 2 of the ones that were in my adult life because I had an there was a head of household in my childhood that was narcissistic, definitely NPD, definitely. I mean, of course, I'm not a
Mm.
therapist, but this person is passed now. So, whatever. It's my story as well as someone else's. But the point is, the ones in my adult life, both of these people would say, well, because you're so good at it, you're better at that than I am. And meanwhile, task by task by task in these partnerships were relegated to my side to where there was nothing being done, but it had to be done because there were, survival. One was a business relationship, one was a life partner kind of situation. And the business relationship, we had made promises to customers and everything. So it had to be done. And it was just like not done if I didn't do it.
Ugh.
And then you're in a cycle. And even when I realized, and the first thing I realized was like, I'm being codependent, is
Right.
it still takes time to pack up and get out, right?
When there's so many things attached, there's so many
Yeah.
cords, there's so many obligations, there's all these different things and intertwined. It is really hard to detach all that.
I wanna
And when you
highlight.
start to try a boundary or say like, "Hey,
Mhm.
like take the weight of the work, like I can't be doing all of this work," they'll make an excuse. So they'll start to put it back on you and they'll always find a way to get out of it. So then you're like, "Well, it's a waste of energy to even have a conversation." So then you just go on and you do it, which is also not
Well,
healthy, but you're stuck.
anything, or you'll get an abusive, conversation. Like, you will find yourself, if you even try to set a boundary or request something, then
Yeah.
you get torn down somehow. And
Yeah.
whether directly or passive aggressively, it does end up feeling like it's too painful to do it than to
Yeah.
just do the work, and it becomes impossible. And I want to highlight what you said, that successful people and healthy people, because this actually came up in a conversation that I had with someone about 2 weeks ago. I walked through this job opportunity, a little bit of a gig that was part-time, and I walked right out of it because I was like, "Oh, narcissism flying around here," at the top of this company. And
Yeah.
but all of the coworkers were lovely people, beautiful people. I was
Mm.
only there 5 weeks. 6 people in one department quit. And that was a
Wow.
person who'd been there 6 years, one person 3 years, one person 2 months. Like, they all, and I was like, "You know what? I was already smelling it, like, on day 1, so I'm gonna exit." So one person who had been there for 6 years, and we kinda made fast friends, like, the moment that we met. And again, and she happened to say, like, there's such beautiful people that work there. They're like lifelong relationships, but there's so much abuse from the top.
Yeah.
And then she was talking about, I don't know why I left and went back a couple of times, and what lessons was I, and I was like, "Listen,
Wow.
predators prey on healthy prey." You know, the lion wants to get the healthiest gazelle. That's just the nature of predatorial, you know, feeding. And so
Yeah.
it's not, but that is something in a video that you were just talking about, where you had a guest who was leaning a little bit more to the, I guess, blaming the victim, saying, "No, it's not really abuse."
Oh,
And
yes. I
yes, I
actually
heard you
made a
rebutting
second
that.
follow-up, and I was like, I
That's the one I
froze in
listened
that.
to. I know, I know.
Did you? Oh, that's the one you listened to. Yeah,
I didn't
the
want to listen to
follow-up
the
one.
original because I liked your follow-up too
Oh,
much.
okay. Yeah. And sorry if I sabotaged it for that guest, but I was like, I just have to
No.
speak up. And unfortunately, this is what happens when we're empaths and we're
Mhm.
conditioned and trained to not speak up, is that you freeze in those moments. And I'm like, did she really just say that? Like, my whole audience now is like feeling alienated. Like,
Yeah.
we experienced abuse. And she was only saying, like, if you're kidnapped and you're like locked up, that's abuse. Everything else is not abuse. And I was like, what did she
Wow.
just say?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really difficult. You can't blame the victims, and it's a very insidious abuse that truly
Mhm.
is abuse, and they're working
Yeah.
to have coercive abuse actually be something in the courts to be able
Yeah.
be recognized.
And, you know, I again, I didn't listen to the original episode, and I wonder if this person is in a part of their journey of healing from some abuse, feeling like, I wanna be empowered, and so I don't wanna only identify as a victim. I get that,
Yeah.
but I mean,
But
and
in the
also I
same interview, which was really interesting with her, is that her parents were narcissistic, and she's like,
Mhm.
"I excuse everyone else; they're all lovely, but not my parents because they're ultimately responsible." And I was like, "Well, I do agree with that." So like, she was very contradictory about what she
Oh.
was saying, and but I love that too because there is an and. That's a complexity about
Mm.
being a human being. Is that
Mhm.
these things are not acceptable, and they are victims, right? Narcissists should not treat people that way,
Right.
and they are abused. And yes, to the answer the comment in here is yes, they constantly are narcissistic people are victims. They play
Yes.
the victim and they don't empower themselves or grow to get out of being a victim. And they use that victim, I guess, playing card to
Mhm.
get out of whatever responsibility we're trying to level them up into and to grow. They don't
Right.
want to grow. It's too scary, it's too painful, they're too lazy, whatever their motivation is. They always play the victim.
And this is a comment from Debbie, who's here. Hello, Debbie, that says, "It seems most narcissistic people have a victim mentality and nothing is ever their fault." Yes, this is correct, Debbie. We completely agree. And like I mentioned earlier, one of the narcissistic relationships that I had, when we would have a disagreement, AKA when this person would lash out at me.
AKA you're trying to share with them that they hurt you.
Yeah, or I'm not going to do all of the things that,
Yes.
whatever it
You
is.
said no.
And I would go and do my inner work, and I would be like, "Okay, when there's a disagreement, let's both find a way to take responsibility." And I would say, "I'm sorry that I reacted," because also I probably did, like, react, you know what I mean? I got defensive, and I got I got in fight flight. And then this
They're
person
good
would
at
say,
getting us into that mode though, too.
yeah. And this person would say, well, thank you for that. Never doing their part
Mhm.
now, and the same relationship, this person, it was a business relationship, grossly mishandled the business for over a year and
Mhm.
put me in spontaneously. This is what actually, I'm not going to say anything more. Uh,
Mhm.
a big surprise, not the kind that reflectors like, that, oh, guess what? This money has been mishandled and it's all on your plate. And this person, and I was like, I can't believe, oh my God, wow. You know what I mean? And by bringing any of my response to this very difficult situation, this person said, I think that you're not taking your responsibility in this. My responsibility of you mishandling our business funds? Well, you could have
Yeah.
asked. I could have asked if you were mishandling my our
I
business
like, what
funds.
how would that be a thought that would come into your head to ask that?
Just to, like, again, the nuances of not
Yes.
taking responsibility that can happen. And we
They'll
have
say anything to get out of it.
totally. Tiffany says mother-in-law is narcissistic, and I just found out she's a projector. Oh, Tiffany's also a projector. I know Tiffany. And at first, I was like kind of offended. Poor thing. I get it. I know.
Right.
But now
No,
I'm
no,
looking at
projectors
things.
are not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
looking at things through the HD lens. And I know because I've looked at that too. It is not relegated to any particular part. Like they're a generator. I've heard
Right.
people say, oh, 1-3 profiles have a tendency to be narcissistic. I'm like, no, we can't say that. No, we definitely can't say
No.
that.
I think
No.
every single type can be prone to it. We
Mhm.
all have our shadows. And I think
Yeah.
the narcissist, it was born with this beautiful design that we all
Mhm.
were, and then
Mhm.
socially conditioned to be stuck in their shadow. Like every
Yeah.
gate, and I don't know if you're into the gene keys, but every gate
Absolutely. I've got 19 in
has
3 places too. So that, and the shadow
okay.
of 19 is codependency.
There you go. But if
So
you're aware, then you can work on it and you can
mhm.
learn and like live through the lesson of it. But
Yeah,
that's the thing is the narcissist is stuck in their shadow. And yeah, project you can have a narcissist any type,
absolutely.
narcissist any profile.
What about the splits? Because my husband's single definition, and I have
Mhm.
noticed through our relationship that he's, fr- in my estimate, pretty invulnerable. Like he isn't very vulnerable to narcissistic relationships, at least one on one. Maybe by
Mm.
society and everything, and because it's just in a way we could call that conditioning. But he
Yeah.
seems to be really neutral in both codependency and narcissism, whether he in himself and in the relationships that show up, and he has single definition. And so I
Mm.
think maybe the split
And what's
definition,
his inner authority?
he's a projector, so his authority is emotional. So yeah. And so
Okay.
he has that emotional fortitude as well for himself.
Yeah.
Really and his open centers are only his sacral, throat, ajna, and head. So those are some other reasons why. However, what about split definitions? Would you call that a vulnerability to narcissistic pairing?
I
Because you're
think
yeah.
yes, I
Mhm.
truly do think so, depending again on how much you're investing in your mental health and your growth. So split
Yeah.
definition is you only have one group talking to each other. So even though he has the emotional, he has to go through one cycle and he's got it. He knows his
Mhm.
intuition and
Mhm.
it's quick. For the ones who have split, you have a little bit more time. You have two groups talking to each other. And
Mhm.
then you can use me as an example. I have triple split. So I
Okay.
have three voices in my head going, oh, but what about this? Or what if this? Oh, but he's so kind. Or, oh, remember when he did this? So, oh, he was really hurt as a child.
Mhm.
And so there's too many voices, too much time. And then the narcissist just overrides that narrative. And you're like, forget it, right? If you're not within your own power, then you're not going to have your own voice in your head.
Right. They say, and I have no entities inside me, so they say it's like having 2 entities or 3 entities inside you. You're saying voices. That's what I've heard, that's what it
Yeah.
feels like for split definitions of various types. And there's quad split, there's triple, quad, and just split, meaning like you just have the 2. Or there's single definition, which I think that I like the way you said it. My husband goes through one cycle and he's got it. And then
He's
he
got it.
has a lot of good definition in areas that, I mean, he's conditioned by that sacral to work too much, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
But that's about it. He just has to be very careful about where he puts his energy and
Yeah.
not to feel like he can shoot off to the moon and back in one day.
Yeah. Oh
That's
my
that
gosh, it's
wisdom
so
there.
funny. That's literally the conversation we had this morning. He's like, "I had a breakthrough. I shouldn't try to just do a whole creative cycle in one day just for the sake of doing it in one day." And you just said the moon one day.
The moon and back.
So intuitive
My
of you.
daughter is a projector, and as she's getting into her double digits, it's really interesting to watch. It's definitely an experiment when you have human
Mhm.
design to start watching the people in your life going, "Oh, wow."
Yeah.
Like, she
Can
just
I had something that dawned on me today because 'cause I'm 5'1", and I love bombing, I think, is
mm,
very insidious for a 5 line because if we're accustomed to getting projections. The 5 line is the one that receives projections, and we're accustomed to getting
right.
projections, and that's how I think, especially love bombing when I was beginning to recover from narcissistic abuse, I was like, "I don't remember being love bombed, really." Because I don't remember taking it in, but maybe that's because I'm accustomed to not taking in projections deeply, but it's still like and so I think they come around in other ways. And in both of these adult narcissistic relationships, they promoted me in our relationship to a high position really quickly. Like they said, "You're my best
Hmm,
friend," or I feel meant to be with you," that kind of stuff. And I was like, "Oh, okay."
hmm.
While it didn't define me, it convinced me that I had to be partners with this person very quickly. And I
It's almost like they
wonder.
took your 5-line leadership and used
Yeah.
that versus, like, your need
Yes.
for affirmation and love and other things.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wonder if that's it. So, but have you ever thought about that? Like the 5 line is accustomed to receiving projections and then love bombing can sneak in there, you know? And 2 lines too. As a sort with your
Yeah.
2 line, you have your 6-2, which receives projections and also gets called out. I bet that that's a vulnerability that you could be experiencing too, right?
It's definitely that. I mean, I've
Mhm.
always thought that it was my open root, and
For
this is why,
sure.
like, sometimes when we're, like, doing our experiment in our own mind and body, like, we need other bodies to be, like, asking, like, "What do you think about this?" Because my open root, I'm always trying to strive to be perfect, to do perfect, to appear worthy,
Yeah.
and I think that was the biggest thing, like, I wanted to, I don't know, like, level up in life and be an important person, and that was really what hooked me into my relationship with the narcissist. Was his family was high status, I felt important to be with him, and I kind of ignored all the other ways that he mistreated me improperly because I
Mhm.
wanted that status. So, I wonder if that's that or if it was, yeah, my 6 profile wanting to kind of elevate that,
Mhm.
that role model, being aloof also, like, he was aloof, and I as a 6 line profile, that's something that we kind of naturally are because 'cause we're at the
Yeah.
top of the I Ching,
Uh-huh.
and so I kind of resonated with that, and I was like, "Yeah, ugh, I can't stand all the people in the world either." But at the same time, like, I needed friendship, and I didn't get that because I was isolated.
Yeah. Isolation.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah.
thing to bring up. Is that that's a common product of being in a narcissistic
Yeah.
partnership, especially because they have the capacity. And that when I say partnership, it doesn't have to be a marriage or a love relationship. It could
Mm-mm.
be something where you're meant to be like in a significant where I would say they can isolate you. If it's your mother-in-law, they may not be able to isolate you as well. Maybe only when
Yeah.
you're with that person. But the isolation, to be able to break down all of your other relationships, it's I call the one that I had in my 20s from 20 to 27, it was really like being in a cult of just 2 people,
Mm.
just me and the other
Yeah.
and the leader of the cult. That's
Yeah,
what it was
because they
very much like.
control your body. I don't know if you
Mhm.
experienced this too, but
Yep.
controlled what you eat, how much
Mhm.
you eat. He got to eat a steak dinner. I had to eat salad out. Like, it was all this stuff of just subliminal messaging. And I chose to eat the salad because I didn't want to gain weight. Because that was
Mhm.
like the fear and the, like, you have to keep looking a certain way and, having a nice tiny figure and all this stuff. It's all surrounded by that. You're right. I was just listening to your amazing episode with the new podcast today, and I was like, oh my god, like, this is mind blowing. The cult, and I
Oh.
did watch the Twin Flames.
Oh, yes, right, right, that's
Ugh,
just
it's
super. And it's
that's it.
amazing because, I feel like cult leaders, it's always a narcissist at the top, and they
Yes.
do all of this recruitment so they can do less, and just, whenever they feel like it, just rain their abuse down on everyone,
Yeah.
and
And
I
they
would
take,
say
take, take.
take up, yeah, exactly, and they're elevated in it, and everyone owes them. They owe them all of this. I also had sleep deprivation in in that first one too, because
Yeah, you do that.
I was compelled, manipulated to have the job, while the other one didn't really have a job, as you mentioned.
Mhm, mhm.
And the job that I was compelled to have had me up at 5 a.m. But I also wasn't, if I tried to go to bed early enough, I don't know how to describe it. It's funny. My current husband, he's like, I don't even know the person that you're talking about. When I'm like, I wasn't allowed to go to bed. He's like, what does that mean? He goes, I don't give you permission for anything. I would never try to.
Like, I love it when we're with partners who can't
You're
comprehend
like,
our toxic abusive partners.
yeah,
Like, I'm in the right
exactly.
one now.
Exactly. And I'm like,
Well, but
there would
it's
just be,
that's the
there would be
thing,
a
he
fit.
wanted attention, right?
Mhm.
They wanted attention from you, so it'd be something.
It was like, watch this. It was honestly like for years, it was watch
Oh,
Jerry Springer with him until like 11:30. It was stupid. But if I
yeah.
tried to go to bed, there was a fight. There was a pout. There was this passive aggressive thing. And it was just like, and again, this relationship started when I was 20. This person was 13 and a half years older than me. This person was a
Mm.
replacement of my mother's husband. So I was
Mhm.
groomed. And so again, there's like these degrees of by having a repeated narcissistic pattern, each narcissist was not as bad as the previous one. So that's easing my way out of it.
Okay, yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
progression.
it
Less and
was good.
less is better.
Yeah, so now we're at 0. We're at 0 tolerance, so
Oh, so good.
let's see what Michelle has to say. Michelle
Yeah.
says, I dated a man who was a narcissist, but he always was saying how everyone else, his ex wife, people at work, etc., were narcissistic, but it was really him recognizing himself in others. What do you
Isn't
think
that
about that?
ironic?
Uh huh.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing is they always say there's something wrong with everyone else in their relationships previously. If they're bad talking constantly, then the problem is them normally. Those
Yeah.
people who, you just don't talk bad about other people. And so that's like your green flag. Like, okay, I'm with someone
Mm,
who's not talking bad about my ex. Like maybe something bad happened, but they're not constantly saying that that person is bad.
hmm.
And
Talk more
that's,
about green flags. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah, I know. I mean, green flags are such good, like a breath of fresh air to look for. Like, look for
Mhm,
the non-drama making humans, of course.
mhm.
Look for the non-blaming. Like, there's no blame shifting. Um, like you said, they're not telling you or giving you permission to do anything in your day. I
Mm,
remember one time because we only had one TV in my previous relationship. So there's one TV, whatever he was watching was watched. I don't
yep.
even remember being able to sit down and watch whatever I wanted. And I was in, the relationship with my partner now at the beginning. And I'm like, I'm just like, I walked out because we were in separate rooms watching two separate things. And I walked out, I was like, this is amazing. I get to watch my own TV show.
Oh my gosh, I have the same thing in that one in my 20s. There was one TV, and like I said, I had to watch. Not only
Yeah.
could I only watch what he was watching, I had to watch what he was watching. I
Yeah.
I was required to be there. And yeah, my
Mm,
husband and I on days off, we have our separate rooms that we're watching something. Then we go, "Hey, do you want to watch this movie together?" And we come together and we choose something to be together. That's so
yeah.
funny.
Yeah, green flags. I mean, they can't comprehend, like, if you are tired and you did wake up early, they're like, "Okay, you're going to bed. Good night."
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
not, "No, stay with me," and guilt you into it, or "You're not a good wife if you're not, giving
Yeah.
me this or that in bed at night." It's like, ah,
We
there's
have
just no
Julie
there's
here.
no pressure. The green flag is there's just no pressure. They're just like, "Okay,
Yeah.
chill." They're just chill within themselves. They're confident.
Julie here is saying hi from Minnesota, who's a mental projector. Julie, I feel that. I know Julie, but I had when I was working with Julie, I didn't know about human design yet. So, and a mental
Ooh.
projector is similar to a reflector, has environmental authority, has no really needs to talk about what it
Yeah.
is that, and that's how they'll know how they think or feel or what's correct for them. That's their authority, more or less.
Yeah.
Mental authority, even though we say no in their
Mental
authority.
authority.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this, I love your perspective that you're bringing, talking about your open root, and your root center is completely open, and that is
Mm.
one of the pressure centers. And so, and you were talking about, maybe it was the status and everything, and I can just feel in that you probably wanted to feel free of the pressure of having to survive on your own, right?
Constantly, yes.
Would you say that's probably a way the undefined root is
Oh,
feeling
I
that
know.
vulnerability?
I was told that, and I believe this is 100% true, the centers that are the most open, they are white, and they also don't have any gates defined. Those are your biggest pain points, right? The biggest struggle. Like my nervous system that's connected to your adrenal glands and nervous system was shot, that I thought that my husband's gonna walk through the door and my dog may bark. So
Okay.
give me a second.
Sure. That's okay.
Let's see if
It's
she
fine.
barks. Are we good? Okay, she
We're
didn't
good, we're
bark.
good.
Okay. So then my nervous system already, no matter what your root is, when you're with a narcissist, your nervous system is in fight or flight all the
Mhm.
time,
Yeah. Mhm.
constantly. So with that being said, that was even more pressure, like more pressure to do. I did think so many things that I regretted with the narcissist because I wanted to please him. And that's the other thing, is when it's open, you're constantly pleasing. But when you realize that this is your biggest weakness, it's also then your superpower. If you then
Yes.
become aware of it and you're like, okay, like being able to shake things out somatically. Like I feel things intensely in my body. If I have a conversation or I see a phone call from someone who seems to be a bit confrontational, or I can't handle it, my gut drops. And
Mhm.
so, all of these things are connected to, of course, my sacral, but that root and the nervous system. So for me, finding ways to somatically cleanse out the stress, like I always have to make sure I go for a walk every day. I do yoga every day. Like there's these certain things that you just start to learn to put into your routine so that you can calm your nervous system down,
Mhm.
or maybe it's your solar plexus. So you can relieve all of the emotions of that other person. And yeah, it's been a journey, and it is
Mhm.
definitely a pressure point. Always pleasing, and I think I remember saying that even to somebody recently in my life, and they're like, I just can't believe it. Like I feel really bad that you felt like you always had to people please. And I'm like, I get that perspective, but that's also just part of my design. I had to learn to be able
Mm.
to not people please through that.
Mm. How can we, see red flags about ourselves when we are people pleasing if,
Mm.
talk about green flags in others, red flags in ourselves?
Oh, I love that. It's a nice spin.
Mm.
Red flags in ourselves. I mean, like I said, that gut drop, if
Mhm.
it's dropping, that means that you're about to do something that you don't want to engage in, right? That's a
Yeah.
red flag. That's something that's not serving you. Um, if you're people pleasing, you are constantly. Um, I think I have to pull from my book
That'd
because
be
I'm
great, I would
blanking,
love
and I literally just read this, and I was like, wow, okay, so something's telling us to read this
open the
because you
book,
brought
yeah.
this up.
Mhm.
And my first book, Empath and the Narcissist. Now, I didn't page mark it, so it's going to take me a minute to find it. It was before conscious parenting, and then it was on this page. Okay.
Awesome.
So the people pleasing, also what I was relating it to was signs that you may have low self-esteem, which I definitely did as a child, which also relates to unhealed childhood trauma. And it doesn't have to be a major trauma, it can be just something stuck, right?
Mhm.
So, number one is people pleasing. That's a red flag where you're constantly doing things to serve others, right? You're putting others before yourself.
Mhm.
I remember my plate was full as a teenager, everything to serve everyone else. And I didn't even take a breath for myself.
Yeah.
That's the real shadow of the open root center with no gates. Your calendar is packed, but there's no me time in your calendar.
Yeah.
Number two is lack of setting and holding boundaries, right? So again, the calendar's full, you don't say no. Someone asks you to do something, you say sure, yes. Saying no is really a painful thing for you.
Mm.
Harsh self-talk, you're always talking down. I used to always remember saying like, God, why'd you do that? That's so stupid. You're so stupid. And I remember used to saying it out loud all the time when I was younger. And then I had kids, and I realized that what I do, like how I act, what I say, they're going to mimic. So I was like, I got to rewrite that out of my narrative real quick because I don't
Yeah.
want them to grow up saying that about themselves. And then number four is the lack of integrity, or a lack of unwavering values. With a narcissist, it didn't take much for him to convince me to do something I didn't want to do. Again, they train you to do that because they've either given you some type of punishment, like they've removed
Mhm.
love from you, given you the silent treatment, removed a gift, removed a vacation or something like that. But still, you have to start to kind of not care about what they've given you or what they're taking away, to really hold yourself and resolve, like, no, you can punish me all you want. This doesn't feel right. I'm not going to do it. And
Right.
that's where that emotional strength comes in. And the last one is yearning for praise outside of yourself. That's definitely another red flag of a
Mhm.
people pleaser, is like, that's also where the narcissist can really get you,
Mhm.
is you're seeking for that love bombing again. You're seeking for that praise because they give you that intermittent reward of like, this is great. I love you. Let's go do this. When you don't please them, they remove it. And so
Yeah.
instead of being obsessed with getting that back, the green flag with a new partner is you have that no matter what. Like,
Mm.
no matter if you make a mistake, if you upset them, if you act out of a trauma response or acting out of your shadow, they're still going to accept you and love you. They're going to, in the right
Mhm.
time, call you out on it, and you're going to have a really great conversation, but they're still going to love you.
And you can have a conversation. My husband and I,
Yeah.
he has a defined route, I have an open route, and there was a work thing that didn't feel right for me, but he was like, "Oh, do you really want to not do a work thing?" You know what I mean? Because we're both entrepreneurs, and it's like, if someone gives you work, you should do work. And I'm like, "No, honey,
Yeah.
some invitations for you, my projector lovely, are bad invitations." But anyway, we're in that space. And I
Yeah.
said to him, "I need you to support me that, this isn't right for me." And he was like, "Oh, absolutely, I support you." Even though he had feelings about it that he needed to process. Oh, I'm
Mhm.
so happy. I'm so proud of myself, Raven, that I didn't just make his processing of emotions about my situation
Mm.
my problem. And he wasn't asking
Yeah.
me to either. That's the green flag for this wonderful, but I have to take responsibility too, which is the wonderful thing about the paradox. If you're a victim, yes, you're a victim, but the beautiful thing is that you also are your own savior. And so you can save yourself, you can change your habits, you can become fortified. And that was a little, green flag in myself, realizing, hey, because someone else is having feelings and emotions, they're not always my work. Communication is my responsibility. And also, my responsibility is to be in what is correct for me. And that's what the world is asking of me. That's what
Mm.
the universe is asking of me. I have to share with you,
Yeah.
I just made a meme the other day in from some, a client that I was coaching her, I was helping her to be able to say, honestly, it was like literally to be able to say, "Hey boss, I'm sick today." That was all it was.
I hate calling in sick. That is
Yeah.
another thing.
Yeah, right? I
Letting them
remember that
down.
I used to think, "I hope they don't think I'm lying." I'm like, "But what? Why? I'm not
You
lying
have
though, I'm
and you
just
have every
sick."
right to lie if you need a personal day, like an
True.
emotional sick day too, right? But
Right, right.
yes.
But this download came after this, and I posted as a meme on my Instagram, holding others to a lower standard of compassion and integrity than you hold yourself is
Mm,
codependency, you know?
it is.
Because if you call in sick and they're like, "How dare you call in sick?" I mean, are they saying they've never been sick a day in their life? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's not possible. It's not that would be out of integrity and, discompassionate. And of course, this client did call in sick, turned off her phone, and they were completely compassionate. She has a lovely employer. Even with lovely employers, that kind of thing
Yeah.
can that kind of worry or people pleasing can sneak up on us.
It can sneak
So,
up. I
yeah.
know. And it's something that you just have to train yourself to not take on that burden of like, oh, that person's going to think bad about me, or
Mhm.
they're going to think that I'm lying, or going into Disneyland. It's like, well, you could do all those things and you'd be perfectly fine. You deserve a sick day. We legally get those.
That's right, totally. Well, what kind of services and how do people work with you? I mean, obviously your books, they're your beautiful books, which are just so great. I imagine those are kind of textbooks for some of the work that you're doing. So tell us how people can work with you and what it is that is available.
Yeah, right now I'm really focusing on the books for you to work on that. Of course, on the podcast, I'm now doing 6 days a week. You can see my generator really
Wow.
shining through
Woohoo!
there.
That's
some are
amazing.
only some are only 5 minutes, right? That's just a
That's
little
okay.
snippet, like
Yeah.
just to kind of keep you in the keeps you supported. I feel like when you're trying to decondition yourself and heal, you just need that little blip, like
Yep.
just a little pick me up during the day when you're coming from that. So yes, the Empath and the Narcissist podcast, and then my YouTube channel is Empath Rising with Raven Scott. So those are the best ways to kind of consume all of that information. And then I am doing readings. So I am kind of like a trauma-informed human design reading. So I'm
Nice.
there to spiritually mentor you and help you heal from narcissistic abuse while also looking at your chart, investigating, okay, where does this come from? Let's find it. Let's bring awareness to it. And let's either shield it up, guard it, or grow it. So,
Beautiful. How long have
yeah.
you been in your human design experiment, by the way? I didn't ask you that.
I know. I feel like I'm a newbie. I was listening to yours and I'm like, oh gosh, she's like been in this for so much
Oh,
longer.
really?
But
It's
I
funny, I
just,
feel new too.
well, I was just talking to someone else who she's been in it for like 10 years and she's like, feels new. So
Ah,
I'm really
okay.
a newbie. But yeah, let me think about this. 2020 is
Okay.
when I discovered my human design chart. Someone read it
Mhm,
for me.
mhm.
And then I just dove right down into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's the
Just
way
got
to go.
obsessed.
Right, there's one of my clients and mentees, and I've been talking to her about her she's a splenic projector, and I was, like, talking to her about her human design for a little bit, and she's like, "Now tell me again," and I was like, "Listen." She's also a 2/4. I'm like, "Just go get into it. I'm just giving you homework.
Oh,
Get into it." She's
yeah.
also Virgo, and she's like, "Okay." 2 weeks
Yeah.
later, she was like an expert level. I mean, there's always so much more. But
I
yeah,
know us
get into it.
the 6 2, I feel like the 2s, as much as the 1s are investigators, the 2s are almost like embodying that investigation, like, we just, like, are insatiable with
Well, what are
that
you gonna do while you're
information.
hermiting? You're gonna
Yeah,
read books.
exactly.
That's what a hermit, a classic hermit is. That's like,
Yeah,
they're in their little house and they just have books and they have candles and snacks. I guess that's what else are you gonna
yeah.
do?
Leave me alone, leave me to my herbs and my books, and I'm good to
Mhm.
go.
Yeah. Well, let's see what else we have here before we sign off today. And we had Champagne here. Hi, Champagne. It is this is today. Yes, this is today. She's asking if we're live. Yes, we're happening. We're happening. That's an interesting
We're
question. Is this
happening.
today? That's how I feel sometimes when I wake up.
What's happening
Yes,
today?
live now. Hi, Carolyn, and hi, Tracy, too. So nice to see you all. And so this is, Michelle also says, dating a man who, we already looked at this one. Okay, yeah, blaming other people. Oh, this is one I wanted to look at. Michelle said, a
Mm,
cop had the authority thing going. Oh, gosh, and probably a little bit of bullying with that.
yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. That's,
Perfect
I'm so
citizen on the
sorry.
outside and horrible inside.
Yeah. Well, your podcast is tell Empath and Narcissist, how to heal with human. Tell me exactly how it has human design in the title as well.
Yes, there is a spiritual healing with human design.
Perfect. Empath and Narcissist is
Yes.
so great.
Yes.
And we're planning for me to come on, and I want to just tease what I'm thinking about talking about
Yeah.
is kind of like that how reflectors we see the big picture, because one of the questions I've been asking lately is why is this a part such a significant pain point for us as a collective at this time? And so,
Mm.
like, and when and where does it happen so far as like the soul's trajectory? Like, where is it? Is it, can they heal from it? Can narcissists heal from it? Or is it something that's more like of an attachment that's kind of like higher in the dimensional, landscape of the soul? These are all the questions I'm asking right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to download them if you would like to talk
Okay.
about it.
And ask about like dark entities, you
Yes,
know?
exactly. Because like I
I mean, I
said,
definitely am convinced that they're attached to them, but like
mhm,
that may be part of the healing, like um and or maybe our yeah, I don't know. It's such a dense field here on earth
yeah,
that dark entities just exist.
it's
So
true.
therefore, will there always be narcissists? Can we ever get rid of it? But I love that it's being more and more pulled out into the awareness. Like when I was with my ex, I had no idea what narcissist was. I
Mhm,
actually had no idea what emotional abuse was. Like I personally did not see that or experience it. So I didn't have a construct of what that
mhm,
was. And he was my first everything. So that
yeah,
like that just was kind of is what it was. And it was very covert, but
mhm,
yet also very malignant.
yeah.
If that can be a combination,
It
covert
is.
malignant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm,
definitely. And so but I didn't realize what any of that was until years later, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, totally.
yeah,
Checks off all the boxes."
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
it's
think all of the
very
different styles, there's also like communal and you know what I mean? Communal narcissists are someone who like really derives a lot of that ego gratification by being elevated in a community. You know what I mean? Like
mhm,
they do good works, but they really do good works just for ego satisfaction and rather than,
like
for
a
the sake
cop.
like a cop, right? You know who's a really great model, I think, of a communal narcissist? If you ever watched Everybody Loves Raymond, did you ever watch that show?
Oh, yes.
The mom, the mother-in-law, the mom, Marie,
Oh,
because she
yeah.
everybody loves my muffins, Deborah. No one likes yours. They all love mine. You know what I mean? And like she's
Uh-huh.
doing things with the community to abuse and like uses it as an abuse tactic to her daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
Why there are a lot of mother-in-laws who are narcissists?
There are, because there just are. I know. It's like the old, I don't know if it's a meme or whatever, right? It's in Tale as Old as Time is the mother-in-law is always like the bane of everyone's existence, but
Yeah.
maybe it's because it's just the narcissistic mother-in-laws are the ones who gave all the mother-in-laws a bad rap.
Totally, totally.
I
Oh
do
my
feel like
gosh.
they do isolate in a weird way. Like they
Mm,
isolate someone like the wife without isolating them from the circle. They're just like, "Oh, I'm better than you and you're not really part of this,
mhm,
but you're
mm.
here. So, we're putting up with you." Kind of a like isolation, social isolation.
Ah, icky. One last
Yeah.
thing I wanna mention too to those who are listening is that narcissism also cycles, you know? So, if you're in a relationship, then they'll be really chill, and actually a lot of them are quite brilliant,
Yeah.
have a lot of great qualities also.
Yeah.
Just sometimes we have to be plain, and then sometimes the relationship is going well, and it might be during a love bombing phase, and so there'll be a cycling where things are going well, and then it cycles back through a bad period. Just I think stand back, and is the person that you're in this relationship with willing to at least sometimes use narcissistic tactics to abuse you? That's something to recognize, and if you think it'll get
Yeah.
better, that's not the place to be. I don't wanna say that there's anyone who can't get better, but I wanna say that you don't have to tolerate another cycle hoping it'll get better.
Yeah.
Would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the average attempts to leave, I think it's 8. I've also heard 12, so don't feel bad if it's more than 8 to leave,
Wow.
and it took me on the 8th time to finally leave, and there's also this thing where there's an energetic trauma bond
Mm,
where, sometimes they're nice to you and they'll text you and what we call it, hoover you back in or suck you back in with that loving, charming, talent that they have. And sometimes, if that trauma bond's strong enough, depending on your childhood, the silent treatment will make you hoover yourself back in. Like,
mm,
I felt like there was a piece of me missing because there wasn't heart cord, energetic heart cord connected.
mhm.
And so so don't feel bad if or don't feel stupid or anything like that if it takes you multiple times.
Yeah.
And eventually they will show their true colors. And when you're done, you'll be done. You
Mhm.
know, for me, it was, I moved out because he hit me in the end. And I was like, well, nope, there's my line. And so then I moved out, but I wasn't planning on divorcing. I was like, we're going to work on our relationship. Like, that's me devoted to the end.
Yeah.
but it then he showed his true colors, and he showed me that he's willing to cheat on me by trying to cheat on someone else, and it just was like too many lines to cross for me. Okay, I'm done. So when you're done, you'll be done.
And keep going. When you're done, like, just
Mhm.
keep going because there will be a lot of attempts. When I left the one in my 20s, the strategy that this person used was, "You're the only I'm hearing voices, and the only way that I ever feel like I might not hurt myself is if you're around." And I was like,
Mm.
I'm gonna say something a little direct. I was like, "Genuinely don't care if you stop living." I mean, I'm sorry, but I was like, but I also don't want someone to die on my watch. I don't need to relieve this relationship and,
Yeah.
with you doing something that, you know what I mean, or attempting to, because that's not something anyone wants to live with. But I had
Yeah.
to do the thing they call gray rocking, where you creep out little by little. You start to
Mhm.
pull your energy back little by little. But I
Yeah.
did when I decided when I was done, I was done. But I still it was like, oof, it takes a little time to pull out because any real conversations only get you abused. That's what is going on there.
It's true. Even if they call it an adult conversation, it's still just not.
You come away being you come away being a bad person somehow, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, Raven, I could talk to you all day, and I promise that I won't. So I'm going to say Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for all of the work you're doing on our beautiful world, for helping the nine-centered being to understand who she truly is, for helping the empath to know who she is and what her strength is, because sensitivity is a superpower and a strength. It is not a weakness. Vulnerability is beautiful, and we need to redeem it so that it isn't consumed and fed on by toxic or narcissistic or abusing people.
Yes.
And you're just and all of the work that you're doing, what a prolific offering of doing 6 days a week, something to support people and your podcast. So thank you so
Mhm.
much. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you for having me here.
I look forward to talking on your podcast and some
Yeah,
other
I'm
time
excited
soon.
for it.
Well, everyone, this is Raven Scott. Be sure to get her books, listen to her podcast. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. Raven, I forgot to tell you, if you want to hang out a minute afterward, I'm just going to say goodbye and play my exit music. I usually tell people in advance. So you're getting a little production because I forgot to actually, I'm telling the audience, you're getting a little production because I got to do the pre production part of it. I'm in the conversation with Raven. So I'll talk to you in just a moment and hopefully again real soon. And everyone, thank you all so much for coming to the live episode. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I want to let you know that I do have an empath course that is available to you right now very affordably. And so you could go to my website, triciacarcharm.com/empath. It's very affordable. It's available now. And I'm building a community from it. We meet about once per month and it's deeply healing and beautiful. So definitely check out all of the links in the description because you'll find all of Raven's invitations and find the way to be able to, buy her books and find out more about how she is shining her light on this beautiful world. And I want you to keep shining your light on our beautiful world. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.